Here's the truth. Intimacy doesn't expire when you turn 70, but almost no one talks about it. We hear about arthritis, memory loss, and retirement, but not about love, touch, desire, or what it means to be close with someone in your later years. Sex and connection may change, but they don't disappear. In this video, we're having a real conversation about what intimacy after 70 actually looks and feels like. Let's be honest, at a certain age, the conversation around intimacy just vanishes. It's as if once you hit 70, society assumes you no longer crave touch, desire connection, or feel the pull of closeness. We talk about medications, mobility, memory, but rarely do we talk about the very thing that makes us feel human. The need to be seen, to be held, to feel desired, not just physically, but emotionally. Why? Maybe it's discomfort. Maybe it's the myth that aging makes you invisible in that way. Or maybe, after a certain point, we're expected to settle into silence about our bodies and our hearts. But the truth is, intimacy doesn't retire. It evolves. It becomes less about performance and more about presence, less about youth and more about connection, comfort, trust, and the kind of touch that says, I know you, I'm here, we're still us. In this video, we're breaking the silence. We're talking honestly, without shame or sugarcoating, about how intimacy shifts after 70. We'll explore the physical changes that come with age, the emotional layers of vulnerability and self-acceptance, and how real connection still lives, breathes, and matters in later life. Because intimacy after 70 isn't something to be embarrassed about. It's something to be reclaimed with confidence, curiosity, and compassion. The idea that intimacy ends at a certain age isn't just wrong, it's deeply harmful. Because intimacy doesn't vanish after 70. It evolves. It becomes richer, deeper, and often more meaningful. It's no longer just about physical attraction or fast-paced romance. It's about connection, emotional presence, spiritual comfort, the quiet, steady kind of closeness that says, you matter to me, even if the body moves differently or the spark looks different than it did at 25. For many older adults, the desire for touch, companionship, and love is still very real, and yet, because the world rarely talks about it, seniors are often left to navigate these feelings in silence, feeling ashamed for wanting something that is completely natural. But here's the truth. You are not alone. In fact, studies show that a growing number of adults over 70 are finding love and connection again, some through dating, others through remarriage, companionship, or deepening existing bonds. According to Pew Research, remarriage is increasingly common among older adults, and senior dating apps have seen a rise in signups over the past decade. This isn't about trying to recapture youth. It's about continuing to live, love, and connect with intention. The physical part of intimacy may change. Bodies may ache more, medications may affect desire, and energy may shift. But what doesn't change is the human need to be close, to feel someone's hand in yours, to be kissed gently on the forehead, to fall asleep knowing someone is there. That feeling doesn't age out. If anything, it deepens. Emotional and spiritual intimacy also takes center stage in later years. Sharing a laugh, holding a gaze, telling stories, sitting together in silence. These moments create intimacy just as powerfully, sometimes more so, than physical touch alone. But we don't talk about that enough. Instead, we hear whispers, or worse, silence. And that silence sends a message to millions of seniors that their desire for intimacy is embarrassing, childish, or irrelevant. It's not. Intimacy at 70, 80, or 90 is not just valid, it's vital. It's a source of comfort, connection, and healing. It reminds us that we are still whole, still capable of love, and still deserving of being loved in return. So whether you're navigating new love, grieving the loss of connection, or wondering if what you feel is normal, know this: you are part of a quiet revolution. One where aging doesn't mean isolation. where love doesn't retire, and where your heart, your body, your spirit still have a role to play in the story of intimacy. You haven't aged out of connection. You've grown into a new chapter of it, and it's worth talking about, out loud and without shame. Aging doesn't erase the need for intimacy, but it does change the landscape of how that intimacy is experienced. For many people, the physical realities of aging begin to show up quietly. Menopause may bring hot flashes, dryness, and a drop in estrogen that changes how arousal feels. For men, lower testosterone levels can mean slower arousal or difficulty maintaining an erection. These aren't signs of brokenness. They're natural transitions that come with time. Then there's the role of chronic conditions. Arthritis, for example, can make certain positions uncomfortable. Diabetes can affect sensation. Heart conditions may limit stamina. Even something as simple as fatigue from a poor night's sleep can reshape what intimacy looks like on a given day. And medications? They matter too. Many drugs used to treat depression, high blood pressure, and even allergies can quietly dampen libido. It's frustrating, especially when no one tells you it might happen. But here's what's important. This isn't the end of sex. It's an invitation to adapt. Sex after 70 isn't gone. It just requires a little more patience, a little more creativity, and a lot more communication. Adaptability becomes the cornerstone. Maybe arousal takes more time or comes in different ways. Maybe penetration isn't the goal every time. Maybe intimacy looks like massage, shared baths, long kisses, or lying in bed holding hands, completely clothed but emotionally wide open. What matters most is not the performance, it's the connection. And connection is still very much available even when the body asks for gentler rhythms. In fact, many older adults say their experiences become more emotionally rich with age. Less rushed, less about expectations, more about presence, tenderness, and trust. It's also worth saying, if physical discomfort is present, there are options. Lubricants, pelvic floor therapy, hormone treatments, medication adjustments, or even just simple shifts in routine can make a world of difference. But you have to feel safe enough to talk about it with your partner, your doctor, or even within your own self. The key is replacing judgment with curiosity. Instead of asking, why isn't this working like it used to, ask, what might feel good now? Because intimacy after 70 isn't a lesser version of something from the past, it's a new version, and it deserves just as much exploration and respect. Aging brings changes. That's inevitable. But change doesn't mean loss. It means learning a new rhythm, together or alone, and honoring what your body can still offer. Connection, closeness, comfort, and yes, pleasure. You haven't aged out of intimacy. You've just outgrown the idea that it has to look one specific way. And in that freedom, there's power, there's possibility, and there's still so much joy waiting to be discovered. If there's one thing that becomes more valuable than ever in intimacy after 70, it's communication. Not just the practical kind, though that's important too, but the emotional kind. The kind that says, here's what I'm feeling, here's what's changed, here's what I'd miss, and here's what I'd like to try. Because when bodies change and routines shift, what keeps intimacy alive isn't performance, it's conversation. Real, honest, vulnerable talk about what closeness looks like now and how both partners can meet each other there with compassion. For many couples, this kind of conversation didn't come naturally earlier in life. Maybe it was easier to assume, to guess, or to just go through the motions. But after 70, those unspoken assumptions often don't hold up. And that's not a bad thing. It's an opportunity, a moment to rediscover connection by putting words to what you feel. Talking about preferences, limitations, and fears isn't just helpful, it's healing. It tells your partner, I trust you with the parts of me that feel unsure. That kind of honesty creates emotional safety. And emotional safety is what allows intimacy to thrive, even when the body is slower or the rhythms have changed. You might talk about things like energy levels, about pain, about what kinds of touch feel good and which ones don't anymore. You might laugh about awkward moments. You might cry about what's been lost. But in every word, you build something more meaningful than a perfect night. You build closeness. And for those entering new relationships later in life, these conversations can feel even more important. You may be bringing a history with you, grief, caregiving, or decades of being partnered in a different way. Being able to say, "This is where I am now," without shame, is the first step toward real connection. Trust becomes more important than performance, because what matters now isn't impressing someone, it's being known. It's feeling safe enough to show up just as you are. No edits, no filters, no expectations to be younger than you are or to pretend things haven't changed. And here's the beautiful truth. When communication becomes the foundation of intimacy, the experience becomes deeper, more intentional, more rooted in love than in pressure. You don't have to get everything right. You don't need to fix anything. You simply need to stay curious, stay open, and keep talking. Because the most satisfying connections aren't built in moments of passion. They're built in moments of trust. When you can turn to your partner and say, "Can we try this?" Or "That doesn't feel good anymore," or "Just hold me tonight." These conversations don't take away from intimacy, they create it. So if you're feeling unsure about your body, your relationship, or your ability to connect, start with words. Say something small, something real. Let your vulnerability be the bridge. Because after 70, intimacy isn't just about what happens in the bedroom. It's about what happens in the quiet moments before and after. It's about presence, permission, and the courage to speak what your heart is feeling, even if your voice shakes when you say it. When it comes to intimacy after 70, one of the most important truths is this: you don't have to figure it out alone, and you don't have to do it without help. There are tools, products, and support systems specifically designed to make intimacy more comfortable, more enjoyable, and more accessible in this stage of life. Because the desire for connection doesn't fade, but the body may need new ways to feel good, to feel safe, and to respond with ease. Let's start with the practical, adaptive products. Lubricants, for example, aren't just helpful. They're often essential after menopause or with certain medications that cause dryness or discomfort, and not just any lubricant. There are water-based, silicone-based, and hybrid options that cater to different sensitivities and needs. The goal isn't to feel like you're going back in time. It's to stay present, comfortable, and connected right now. There are also positioning supports like wedge cushions, adjustable beds, and specially designed pillows that reduce pressure on joints or sore spots. These aren't gimmicks, they're tools of care, ways to make your body feel supported so your mind can relax and focus on connection. Even something as simple as a warm bath beforehand can ease muscles and create a sense of calm before touch. But products are only one part of the puzzle. Medical and therapeutic support is often overlooked, and it shouldn't be. If you're struggling with pain, low libido, or even anxiety around intimacy, talk to your doctor. Not all health providers are trained in sexual wellness for older adults, but many are becoming more aware, and some are specialists in this area. Geriatricians, pelvic floor therapists, urologists, gynecologists, and even physical therapists can help address real concerns that interfere with closeness. And let's not forget about sex therapists. Yes, they exist for seniors. These professionals can help you and your partner navigate new dynamics, fears, and feelings. They create a safe, shame-free space where questions can be asked and solutions explored. Because so much of this experience is emotional, not just physical. What's also changing is the technology that connects us. Today, there are online forums, educational videos, and senior secret dating platforms where older adults can learn, share, and support one another. Whether it's a forum on adaptive intimacy, a video series on postmenopause desire, or even a podcast where older couples talk openly about love after 70, you're not alone. The silence that once surrounded this topic is beginning to fade. and in its place is something new: community, curiosity, support. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to use tools. It's okay to explore. These aren't signs of weakness. They're signs of wisdom. They mean you're investing in your well-being, your pleasure, and your connection. So if something's not working the way it used to, don't give up. There are solutions, and more importantly, there's no shame in using them. Intimacy in your 70s, 80s, and beyond doesn't have to be something you whisper about in the dark. It can be something you approach with confidence, creativity, and care. Because your body still belongs to you, your pleasure still matters, and connection is still something you deserve, fully and without apology. One of the greatest barriers to intimacy in later life isn't physical. It isn't even emotional. It's cultural. We live in a world that sends a very clear message that sexuality has an expiration date, that after a certain age, touch is no longer needed, that desire is something you grow out of, that older adults should be wise, quiet, and content, but never romantic, never passionate, never longing for connection. That message, it's wrong. And yet so many people have internalized it. So many older adults carry a quiet shame, not because they've done anything wrong, but because they were never told it was okay to still want love, or to still feel desire, or to explore pleasure in a body that's changed. This shame can be paralyzing. It leads to silence, isolation, a sense that if you bring it up, even with a partner, you'll be met with discomfort or dismissal. But here's the truth: your desire is not embarrassing, it's human. And if no one around you is saying that out loud, let this be the moment that changes. Because love doesn't age out, intimacy doesn't have a deadline, and real connection is something that deepens, not disappears, with time. There are so many real stories that prove this. A woman named Ellen, 79, widowed for over a decade, joined a book club and met someone new. They didn't rush into anything, but one night sitting on her porch, holding hands under the stars, she realized something. I can still feel butterflies. Or Richard, 85, who started dating again after a stroke, changed how his body moved. He didn't try to go back to normal. Instead, he and his partner found a new rhythm, slower, softer, but no less meaningful. It's not about what we do, he said, it's about how we show up. These stories matter because they break the silence. They remind us that intimacy is not defined by performance, it's defined by intention. It's the quiet glance, the gentle hand on a shoulder, the vulnerability of saying, I still want to be close to someone. And knowing that yes, you still can be. But we can't change the way society sees aging and intimacy unless we talk about it. Unless we say clearly, older adults are not invisible. We are not done, and our needs are still real. It's time to rewrite the narrative, to unlearn the shame, to let go of the idea that desire fades with age, or that you're somehow foolish for still wanting connection. You're not foolish. You're brave for staying open, brave for adapting, brave for wanting more than just to exist. You want to feel, to be seen, to be touched, to be loved. And that's not shameful, that's sacred. So let this chapter be an invitation to speak openly, to explore boldly, and to reconnect without apology. Because the truth is, your story isn't over, and neither is your capacity for love. For many older adults, intimacy is not just about change, it's about rediscovery, especially after seasons of loss, illness, or long-term caregiving. When you've spent years tending to a spouse through dementia, Parkinson's, cancer, or a stroke, or when you've said goodbye to a partner after decades of love, it's easy to assume that chapter of life is closed forever. That connection, at least in the intimate sense, is something that belonged to the past. But intimacy doesn't disappear when circumstances shift. It simply finds new ways to exist. Grief can make the idea of closeness feel impossible. After losing a partner, even the thought of being touched again might feel like betrayal, or like opening a door you thought had already closed. But with time, many discover that connection and grief can live side by side, that holding someone's hand doesn't erase your memories, that sharing laughter doesn't mean forgetting. It means continuing to feel. And for those still in a relationship but navigating long-term illness or disability, intimacy may no longer look like it used to, but it absolutely still matters. Sometimes, the most meaningful closeness comes not from the physical acts we used to chase, but from the presence we now choose to give. Maybe it's lying side by side, hands lightly intertwined, breathing in rhythm. Maybe it's telling old stories that make you both smile. Maybe it's a quiet glance across the room that says, "I still see you." For couples who've spent years in survival mode, changing bandages, managing medications, helping each other dress or eat, intimacy can begin again, not with a touch, but with permission. Permission to put the caregiver role down for just a moment, to be partners again, to be humans again. It might be as small as asking, "Do you want to sit with me for a while?" Or "Can I hold your hand?" These tiny invitations hold power, because intimacy at its core is about being known. And being known isn't limited to bodies. It's rooted in presence, in being emotionally safe, in saying, "You still matter. You're still mine." We don't often talk about the layers of intimacy beyond the bedroom, but for so many older adults, those are the places where the deepest connection now lives. It lives in showing up every day, even when words are few. It lives in warm meals shared in silence, in spooning gently under the covers without expectations, in moments where you don't need to be anything but real. It's okay if what once was isn't possible now. That doesn't mean love has stopped growing. In fact, many couples report that as the physical shifts, the emotional closeness deepens. Freed from expectations, intimacy becomes purer, more about presence than performance. And if you're starting over, whether single by circumstance or choice, connection is still available to you, whether it's with a new partner, a companion, or simply in the gentle rediscovery of your own self-worth. Intimacy remains an open door. Because being loved, being held, being seen, it isn't a privilege of the young. It's a right we all carry, no matter what our past has looked like. You are not too old. You are not too broken. You are not too late. You are still worthy of intimacy, whatever that looks like for you now. And you are still allowed to find beauty in the ways connection returns, even after everything has changed. Intimacy doesn't have an expiration date. It simply matures. It changes shape. It deepens. It softens. It becomes less about performance and more about presence, less about perfection and more about honesty. And if no one has told you this before, let me be the one to say it clearly. You are still worthy of being loved, touched, and truly seen. There is no point in life when we stop needing connection. That need may evolve, but it never disappears. And when we silence conversations around aging and intimacy, we don't protect dignity. We deny it. The truth is, aging will shift how we move, how we feel, and how we relate to our bodies. But what it should never change is our belief that we deserve closeness, desire, and emotional safety, in whatever form that takes. Maybe that's a gentle hug after dinner. Maybe it's lying in bed beside someone who knows your story. Maybe it's simply holding hands and feeling comfort in the silence. And maybe it's also being brave enough to talk about it, to ask the hard questions, to express your needs without shame. Whether you're speaking with a partner, a doctor, or a close friend, every honest word helps dismantle the silence around aging and intimacy. We can't erase the years. We can't undo the physical changes, but we can choose connection. We can choose to be present with our partners and with ourselves. And we can choose to believe that our capacity to love, to be loved, to feel affection and joy does not end with age. If you're someone who's been hiding these needs, if you've felt embarrassed or forgotten or unsure whether intimacy still belongs to you, Let this be your reminder. It absolutely does. You are not broken because you've changed. You are not less because you move slower, feel differently, or need new ways to connect. You are simply becoming, maturing into a new version of yourself, one with even more wisdom, depth, and tenderness. So open the conversation, be curious, not critical, and remember, there is no shame in wanting to be close. There is only humanity. Aging changes many things, but your need for intimacy isn't one of them. You still deserve to be loved. You still deserve to be touched. You still deserve to be understood at every stage of life. And if we can keep speaking that truth without judgment or fear, then perhaps we'll not only age with grace, we'll age with connection too. Of course. Here's a warm, emotionally resonant outro that seamlessly follows your final reflection and fits the tone of your Elderly Truths channel. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this message spoke to something in your heart or helped you feel a little more seen, please consider subscribing to Elderly Truths. Here, we speak openly about what aging really feels like, the challenges, the beauty, the truths no one tells you. And if there's someone in your life who might need to hear this, share it. You never know whose silence you might break with just one conversation. Leave a comment below if you've experienced intimacy evolving with age, or if you've found new ways to stay connected. Your story might give someone else the courage to speak their own. Until next time, take care of your heart, your body, and your connection to others, because you still matter, and you still deserve love in all its forms.